As you know, for Catholic Latte, I've done a whole bunch of movie reviews, which, truth be told, aren't really technically movie reviews because I don't really review the technical or artistic merits of a particular movie, but I just kind of focus on certain key spiritual themes that I happen to find in any kind of movie that I've seen that has struck me in a particular way. But today I like to do something a little bit different by focusing on a movie that I haven't seen before. So a bit of a circus trick, but we'll see how it goes. So the movie I like to focus on today is called Spider-Man No Way Home. And as I'm recording this, the movie hasn't come out yet, so it's scheduled to come out in December 2021. So all we have right now is the teaser trailer. So not even the final trailer, but the teaser trailer. But what a trailer it is. It's amazing. It's garnered a whole bunch of different hits and views on YouTube, and yeah, definitely check it out. It really is worth seeing. And basically, Spider-Man No Way Home is the third movie in a trilogy of Spider-Man movies where the lead character, Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, is played by Tom Holland. So in the context of the previous movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, the lead antagonist from that film, Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, he basically reveals to the world the secret identity of Spider-Man. So now the entire world knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So given all that, the main plot point, if you will, when it comes to the third movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, is basically Peter Parker trying to figure out what to do. So what he does is that he enlists the help of Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And in his large repertoire of spells, Doctor Strange has this really special spell which allows him to basically do what Peter wants, to erase the memory of Spider-Man's secret identity from the collective consciousness of the entire world. The difficulty, though, is that when Doctor Strange is casting a spell, Peter Parker realizes the wider implications of what's about to happen. So he starts to say out loud, well, what about MJ, my girlfriend? What about my best friend Ned? What about Aunt May? Surely these people should still remember that I'm actually Spider-Man. And what's implied, and again, this is based simply on the trailer, but what's strongly implied is that Peter, by raising these doubts and these concerns and having a half-heart about these things, he interferes with the spell. As a result of which, there's the introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe of this concept of the multiverse. So basically what happens is that by the end of the trailer, you see the introduction of various villains from the Spider-Man catalog from previous Spider-Man films, most notably from the Tobey Maguire series from back in the day. So again, what you see before the end of the trailer is Dr. Octopus, played by Alfred Molina, and a very strong hint of the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, in those earlier Tobey Maguire films. Anyways, partway through the trailer, Doctor Strange essentially identifies why the spell is kind of screwed up. So what he says to Peter is that your problem is that you're trying to live two lives. And implied in that is that that's causing a whole whack of problems, not just for you, but for the world. And for me, watching that, I couldn't help but think about a conversation I had with my spiritual director back in the day when I was still at St. Augustine Seminary studying to be a priest. So basically, just to kind of paraphrase, my spiritual director was saying that even though it's true that there is the universal call to holiness, we're all called to holiness, we're all called to sainthood, at the same time, you got to be kind of careful pitching to people the idea of holiness, because for the most part, people don't really know what holiness actually is. So for example, in the words of Father John Riccardo, a lot of people think that holiness is all about having a collection of virtues or various habits of self-control, failing to realize that holiness in its essence is about belonging. Holiness is about belonging to Christ. So given all that, my spiritual director was basically suggesting that instead of pitching to people the idea of holiness, perhaps he might set before them the goal of simply growing in love, because people seem to get that. So grow and become a person of authentic love. And by extension, you become a person of holiness, right? Because, of course, God is love. Insofar as I become conformed to God who is love, I become holy, right? Because, of course, holiness is about belonging entirely to the person of Christ. So again, I was thinking about this conversation I was having with my director back in the day, but in the context of this trailer, I was kind of taking the thing one step further and thinking about the notion of integrity, right? So again, quite apart from the notion of holiness or even love, another way to sort of gauge your spiritual progress is to kind of ask yourself, am I growing as a person of authentic integrity? Bishop Robert Barron talks about the same concept in terms of sainthood, right? So what he says basically is that a saint is about one thing. A saint is about one thing as opposed to two things, three things, four things, or more, right? And it plays upon the language of Doctor Strange in the trailer, right? Your problem is that you're trying to live two lives. How often do we find ourselves in that space? We're not living in the space of the saint where our lives are about one thing, but instead our lives are about multiple things. And you see, practically speaking, what this means is that perhaps you might want to ask yourself periodically, am I tired? Do I have real integrity? Is my life about one thing, right? Or is my time and talents and gifts and energy divided over multiple things, as a result of which I'm not just tired, but I'm exhausted? Now, if you're attentive to the few things the Lord wants you to do carefully and well, you should be tired at the end of each day. You should be fatigued. I mean, hopefully it goes without saying. At the same time, you shouldn't be experiencing this deep sort of existential fatigue, if you know what I mean, where you feel completely ragged within your soul. If that's the case, probably it's symptomatic of a divided heart. Now, fortunately, if you're living in that space of having a divided heart, the solution is simple. The execution might be difficult, but the solution is simple. And basically, the solution is this: to ask yourself the question, is everything that I'm doing situated in God's particular call for my life? Like, is God calling me to expend the slightest amount of time, energy, or however you want to frame it, life in this particular direction? If He's not, then why are you doing it, right? Situate absolutely everything in your life in terms of God's particular call for your life, and then you'll realize only in retrospect that it is only in that space that you find holiness, love, integrity, and truly freedom of heart. And may God bless you all.